Hello, welcome to Down to Earth with Dee. I am really excited about today's conversation with a really remarkable human being. A person who's given me a lot of hope, a lot of love, a lot of insight, and a lot of joy. Tomfoolery. I'm sure you followed him on Instagram. You've probably even seen his amazing video called The Great Realization. And he's really instilled a lot of hope in my life, and I had to connect with him. And I'm actually really excited about the fact that we even got the opportunity to collaborate. More about that. Let me just see if he's sent in a request. Yes. Hi.
Hello, dear. It's a pleasure to
How
speak
are
to you.
you?
Yeah,
So
really
good.
well.
Thank you so much for making the time, for joining all of us. There's so many people who love you in India, who follow you, who are so moved by your words and your thoughts and your feelings. And I think in many ways, Tom, you've given me so much hope through this time, and I'm so grateful to you for the love and the light and the power of your thoughts.
Phew, what a kingly introduction. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel very much the same about the work that you're doing. And it's been a year we'll never forget, hasn't it? I
Yes.
think I think 10, 20 years from now, if someone says what happened in 2020, I think we'll all be able to tell them.
Yeah, we will. And we will have, hopefully, become better people
Mm.
and better citizens of our planet, and hopefully have built back better. It's a term that we use frequently now, but with a great sense of commitment, because I think if there's anything that this time has taught us is that we need to fix our broken relationship with nature. And I'm going to speak more about this with you a little later, but I want to start with talking with you about the Great Realization. Tom, you've
Okay.
just released a book as
Yeah.
well. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's
Um,
very unexpected. You know, I didn't know that this was going to be possible for me ever. It was always a bit of a pipe dream, but yeah, the world has proven that it can be very unexpected sometimes.
yes, and it's a great example of how wonderfully you have used this time that you've had. Tell me, how did the Great Realization happen? What inspired it, and what has it done? I know that there are millions of people across the globe who've shared this video, loved it, and really, become a part of a community that I'm sure you didn't know you could create overnight.
No, I couldn't have foreseen. So the the story of how it happened really was. So I was working in London as a freelance filmmaker. I was making short videos for a big company's Instagram page. And when, when lockdown hit the UK, my job just stopped existing. It wasn't even as if they fired me. It was suddenly there was no job for me. So um my financially I was very unstable, so I had to move. I'd been living with some friends at the time. I had to move back home to live in my dad's house with my little brother and sister. And all of my family works in health. My big sister's a doctor, my mum's a midwife, and my dad is a professor of epidemiology. But even he was called back to work in the hospitals when we were at the peak um, of the virus coming through our country. And so there was me, just at home with a little brother and sister all day, attempting to be the teacher and the cook and the cleaner and the big brother and the organizer of fun. And I guess I wanted, I tried to fulfill those roles and responsibilities as best I could. But I also really wanted to I really wanted for us to feel like we were being useful in this time, because I think it's easy in a time like this for the scientific minds in our community to be the heroes, and they really are heroes in moments like these. But also, I feel like people who love working in the creative spheres, so many of my friends, work in the theatres in London, which are still closed. Even though the schools are reopened, the theatres are still shut. And I didn't want to feel like all of the creatives just had to watch from the sidelines and sit and wait for this time to be over. I wanted to feel like I was contributing and being useful and all of these things. So we started creating these little projects that we could, I've been writing poetry for, I'd say, the last 10 years. Not too many, not too many people were aware of me doing this, but that was okay. I would just perform in little shows around London and Manchester. And so this felt like a really nice time to, get that out. So I started writing these little pieces, and then I would try and get my little brother and sister to help me in the creation of them, and to get them excited about, how we could make them, what would go into them, and then would release them. And the great realization was inspired by this feeling that I kept hearing people say, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. I was saying this, everyone I was speaking to was saying, oh, when's everything going to go back to normal? And for some reason, this wasn't sitting right with me, and I think the more I thought about it, the more I started to realize, I think it's because, before there were plenty of things that, from my perspective, needed improving in our world. We didn't have everything as we should have it, and then this virus came along and ruined everything. I think there were a lot of imbalances that needed addressing. And so I thought, instead of us all collectively wishing and dreaming that things could go back to normal, I was thinking, wouldn't it be so much more hopeful if we could think, let's use this time and how disruptive this moment is to right some of those wrongs, and put some things in a better place than we used to have them. And so once I'd had that idea, I sat down with my little brother and sister, and I asked them, I was like, what were the big problems in the world from your perspective? And my little sister,
How old are your brother and sister?
they're seven, they're twins,
Oh, okay.
boy and a girl twins. And my little sister, she was very worried about fish in the oceans getting, because I think she'd seen something on TV where they
Yeah,
get caught up
there's
in.
going to be more plastic in the oceans than fish by 2050. That's something that most children know now. It troubles
Exactly.
them a lot.
And it troubles them, and
Yeah.
it seems to trouble them more than it troubles adults. And so, when I was asking, I was trying to make a list of the problems, and that was right at the top of her list. And for my little brother, it was about, wealth inequality, but the way that he expressed it was, he said he didn't think it was fair that some people had lots and lots of money and some people had no money at all. And so I was like, okay, right, we can get that in there. And I was very interested in pressure groups and, the smoking and gambling, and gun lobbies, and I was like, okay, I want to talk about that. And effectively, we just plotted these things, so that the structure of the poem could be, I'm putting my little brother to bed, we're in the future, and we sorted out, some of the big problems, because I thought it's so much more hopeful to
Yeah.
say, instead of saying I wish things would get better, to say things did get better. So we're there, and we're just traveling through this story of how the world was, the virus came along, and then how we put things right.
It's oh my God, it's even now I have goosebumps. It's just such a powerful piece of hope. And I think it resonated so deeply with all the people who've loved it and shared it. And I think what you touched upon about how your siblings at the age of 7 have such a strong sense of empathy and respond so deeply to social inequality and an environmental crisis.
Mm,
Tom, I feel like the time for tokenism is over. We've been hearing about how we need to do better for decades now.
mm,
But I think what this lockdown and this human crisis must teach us all is the fact that we have to start changing ourselves first
yeah.
and respond to this crisis from that understanding that we no longer can live with this large ego that the planet will keep providing, and we can continue to remain exploitative and keep changing everything around us that the natural world has so generously offered us.
Mm,
And I think that leads us to the question of how, as urban dwellers, as people in the creative world, as storytellers, we can shape the way people respond and feel and react to what is happening because of, unfortunate human action.
mm. Well, I think that I completely agree. I think that this is the responsibility of artists, to present questions, and sometimes people are resistant when they feel that the messages of a piece of art are too instructive and too preachy. But I think there's always there's sometimes a gentler way of presenting these things as well, and just saying, look at this, how do you feel about this? Like, do you think that that's right or fair or sustainable? And sometimes I personally respond really well to that approach, to just I've never had particular I've never found my pieces of work are particularly effective when I'm too aggressive, I suppose, and suggesting that people are behaving in a different way to myself, because I think we're all in this together. And so instead, I just try and tell stories and just lay out things that the way that I see them, and hope that it'll make someone think in a slightly different way. And with the Great Realization, I feel there was a really warm acceptance and acknowledgement, I suppose, of some of the kind of questions that were asked, I guess, about ways that we could improve.
True. What is the role that nature has played in your life?
Well, I was born in I was born in New Zealand, which is an
Beautiful.
incredibly an incredibly beautiful. Have you ever been able to
Yes, I
go?
filmed there. I spent about 45 days there
Amazing.
many years ago and fell absolutely and completely in love with that country.
It's hard not to, isn't it?
Oh my God, every part of it is like a picture postcard. It's just nature's beauty in
Yeah.
abundance, and I have vivid and beautiful memories of my time spent there.
No, it's such a beautiful country. Well, so I was born there, and my parents are Welsh, and in Wales, which is in the United Kingdom, we have so many near where my parents grew up. There are so many mountains. So all through my childhood, it was spent, I suppose, interacting with nature and doing incredibly natural things that involved you know walking
Climbing
or
trees, scraping your
climbing trees.
knees,
Yeah.
watching squirrels play.
Exactly, all of these things. And I think I fear generations having to grow up without without these wonders available to them. I think so many of the advances that we've made as people are so exciting and revolutionary, but then also, you never want the balance to tip over, to tip over into the side of too much and destructive, and the removal of things that can't ever be replaced. I think that's something that a lot of people are thinking about, and I actually think, which is something you brought up earlier. I think this is something that children care a lot about. You know, I once asked my little brother if he would rather, because we go to Wales a lot, if he would rather go to school in where I grew up, or in London, and he said definitely in Wales, because there's too much litter in London. And, for a little boy, that's something that he's is that bothers him. And I think that's exciting, because I want children to grow up and be concerned about these things, because then good change will happen.
But it's amazing, though, that change is happening. Children are changing the way people think and the way we respond to our life, and the way our patterns of consumption, our patterns of production. What this time has most certainly taught me, and I could say this because I've seen evidence of it. The kind of environmental action and activism that children have demonstrated through this time, whether it is through signing online petitions,
Mm,
engaging with governments, demanding policy change, it's been unprecedented, Tom. And I think what children have discovered through the power of social media and the internet and the connection that it has given them with each other, children have
mm,
formed networks across the globe to bring change. And that to me is very exciting, because your 7-year-old brother and sister don't need to wait to become adults to demand change. They can do it right now.
mm,
And I think that's a very powerful thing, because that's really what is, I hope, is something that is going to compel governments and institutions and policymakers and law to
yeah,
reform and change the way we're building and living. I was thinking about it the other day. The human species is the only species that has moved away from the natural world and created a life outside of the natural world.
mm,
So, which is why perhaps our interaction with nature has reduced so much, and it's only as per convenience.
yeah,
And while it's led to where we are right now, I think the power of technology can also help us
completely.
change that and reverse the effects of that. Because I know there are more and more schools now
Mm,
that are, going back to having classrooms outdoors. So I went to a school that was called the Forest of Education, Vidyaranya, in Hyderabad. And we did most of our classes outdoors under trees. We did, we did walks in nature. We composted waste. We understood what consumerism was doing to the planet and doing to the world. And I think um, where we're at right now, much like the Great Realization suggests, is this incredible time in human history where we have the opportunity to reverse all the bad and the wrong we've done. And we can do it with these incredible collaborations and partnerships people can make, and especially children can make across the globe.
yeah,
We did a collaboration, which I'm so proud of. It's such a beautiful poem, um, the one that you wrote on hope.
yeah.
Uh, how did that come about?
Well, in the in the in the aftermath of the Great Realization, I suddenly found myself with, many people who had kind of become aware of my work, and they were following the tomfoolery page. And what? One of the things that I noticed was so many people were sending me their poems, that they had written, because they had seen a piece that I had made, have this moment of attention. I think I think even though I've never considered myself to be, an expert on anything, I think people were sending me their work, to see what I think, and I was so excited by how many people wanted to kind of be actively involved. And so I tried to conceptualize a way to be inclusive of so many of those people that I think wanted, a moment for their voice and their face, to be able to express to an audience, I suppose, a message that we all collectively believed in. And so in order to do that, I purposefully wrote a poem that was really, really simple, incredibly simple, more
It
simple, I
is,
think.
but it's so powerful, Tom.
Well,
It's so powerful.
I wanted to do this because I hoped that, and this, this ended up being, the result in the end, that I hoped that there would be submissions from children and from people who English wasn't their first language, and people all over the world. And so I put this poem together, and then I put an open call for anyone who wanted to be, involved in this video to send me their poems. And so, like, I think over 400 people took the time to record themselves speaking this whole poem and send it to me. And I was expecting far less than that. So then suddenly I had a big challenge on my hands, because I didn't want to leave anybody out. So I had to. This poem was only, I think, 20 lines long, and I wanted to try and find a way to, give everyone a moment of appearance in it. And so, I was really pleased that that was something that we were able to put out, just because I think it's obviously one thing for me to write the things that are in my head and to make videos and then to push them out there. But I think also there's many people as well who love to be able to have an audience, hear their voice.
Oh, absolutely. And that moment where all the faces come in together in that instant was so wonderful, because I think it was just such a wonderful reflection of how connected we've all become through this time that was meant to isolate us.
Mm, yeah.
We've kind of turned to one another through the internet to find balance.
Well, this is definitely something we can be excited about, and even this conversation that we're having now, is incredible that, live, we can have this conversation about the world that we, hope that we are heading towards, and, the world that we hope to instill, for whoever comes after us. And, it's pretty remarkable technology that's allowing this to happen. So there's a lot to be excited for.
So the pandemic is not over. It's
Mm,
still here. We still haven't found a solution to this problem. Scientists indicate that there may be more pandemics like this. And which is why at the United Nations, we're all encouraging more people to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals at an individual level,
yeah.
organizations, governments. Um, what do you believe, Tom, is going to be the future? How do you see the next 10 years? Because I think these 10 years are critical to everything next.
Yeah. I think, I can only speak in an aspirational sense, because I think if we'd spoken a year ago and you would have asked me what I could have predicted for the next 12 months, I would have been a million billion miles away from, from the world as it's played out. But something that I attempted to, um, reference in the poem, The Great Realization, was the way that I feel in nature. Actually, we operate in these cycles of, you know, a period of war is then followed by a period of peace, and a period of illness is followed by a period of wellness. And I feel like this this year 2020 and this pandemic has really has really thrust upon us a period of deep, you know, un, unrest and unwellness onto the world. And I think naturally, you know, within the cycle, what comes after that is, you know, a breath, you know, a breath of fresh air. And I do believe it works that way. And you know, I think actually, you know, there will be observable consequences of the way that we've acted this year. You know, so many people are rethinking the amount of unnecessary travel, for example, or you know, the you know, I know that in this country, so many people aren't commuting anymore into, you know, into offices in the center of town. They're working from their homes, and I think all of these things do add up in a really special way. And I hope we start to be made aware of the good things, you know, that have come out of this time, because you know we cannot ignore the suffering. But I think if we, you know, if we're educated on the ways in which our behavior is leading to positive change, then I think people need to hear that.
I hope they do, and I hope we can continue to remain connected. It's been such a pleasure connecting with you,
Thank
and
you.
I hope we can continue to collaborate, help more people discover wonderful things as we discover them ourselves. Lots of love to you, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, thank you. I would love that. And thanks for taking the time to speak to me.
It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. All the best to you, Tom. And
Take
give
care,
my
dear.
love to your siblings. Lots of love to both of them.
I will.
Take care. Big thank you to all of you who joined us. Um, this was Down to Earth with Dee. I really believe in the power of words and communication and storytelling to shape the way we think, respond, feel, and the kind of difference we can make as citizens of our planet. Let's come together to continue to make a difference. Let's try and learn and rebuild our relationship with nature and build back better for people and for planet.